Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. In our last podcast, we saw the preparation for war and the sharp sword which comes forth from Jesus' mouth. With a rod of iron, he will rule those appointed to life and those appointed to death. We also studied about how he now treads the winepress of wine, of the wrath, the furious anger of God the Almighty. Let's pick back up with the amazing name he has written on his garments. Episode 165, Revelation 19, verses 16 through 19. He has a name, Revelation 19:16. And on his robe and on his thigh, he now has a name caused to having been written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This name is being written on his robe and his thigh sometime in the past. It's understandable that the robe is detailed with this name, as many garments of war bear names, emblems, or insignias, but it's a bit unusual to have a name written on the thigh. The thigh is traditionally where the sword of a warrior is draped, but instead of a sword, he has a name, a title, really. The sword comes from his mouth, so his thigh, which would be clearly seen as he rides, bears the inscription of ultimate power and authority. King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The Lord our God Almighty is it. There is no other. The spiritual princes, whether Satan, the beast, the seven heads, the 10 horns, as well as the gods, the kings of the earth, the merchants of the earth, and the plethora of demonic entities in the hosts of heaven, who are or who have been worshipped by mankind, are all subject to him. He is it, and they will bow or die, or both. This name also silences all of mankind who has believed in the original lie. All those who believe that with their knowledge of good and evil, they can be good like God. This name silences every petty man or woman who thinks or thought they can or could stand firm and hold their ground against the creator of the universe. He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the ultimate authority. What else can be said? This name is the ultimate trump card. When he moves into action, all who are in the heaven and the earth will come under obedience and subjection to him. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. For he did not subject to angels the word that is now coming, concerning which we now speak. But one has chosen to testify somewhere now saying, what now is man, that you are now caused to remember him? Or the Son of Man, that you now choose to consider him? You made him for a little while lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor, and you have put all things in subjection under his feet. For in subjecting all things to him, he left nothing that is not subject to him. But now we do not yet now see all things caused to having been subjected to him. Even though he is yet to exercise this absolute and dictatorial authority, the Spirit is clear that Jesus has the power and is now caused to be able to subject all things to himself. For the Father has given to the Son all authority in heaven, in earth, and has put all things in subjection to him, or under his feet. The coming slaughter, Revelation 19:17 through 18. Then I saw an angel having been standing in the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice, now saying to all the birds which choose to now be flying in midheaven, come, you are commanded to be caused to assemble for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of commanders, and the flesh of mighty, and the flesh of horses, and of those who choose to now be sitting on them, and the flesh of all, both free and slaves, and small and great. The angel in the sun. The Spirit thought it was important that we understand that this angel has been standing in the sun. This is rendered in the perfect active participle. Sometime in the past, this angel stood in the sun, and he has continued to be standing in the sun. There is nothing in the text or the codex that explains whether the angel was standing in the actual sun or if sun is being used as a metaphor for the light of Jesus. Who knows? This angel's assignment might be the literal sun. Either way, he cried out in a loud voice. Have you noticed there does not seem to be a lot of normal discourse with these heavenly beings? Just a lot of crying out and loud voices. And he is even now delivering a message to all the birds regarding a meal that they are commanded to attend and to which they will be compelled to attend. Spiritual or physical. Through an angel, God is calling by command all the birds to a glorious slaughter, which the Spirit calls the great supper of God. And with the symbol being in the passive voice, they are caused to gather. They must obey this invitation. They will be forced. The cuisine served at this great supper of God is all manner of flesh. It's going to be a protein-rich meal. Sorry, that's a terrible joke. This raises several questions. Are the references to the birds kings, commanders, horses, and those who choose to now be sitting on them a picture of spiritual beings, physical beings, or both? Does the reference to mighty refer to the merchants of the earth, the mighty ones of the earth, which we discussed in Revelation 18:23 when we did a deep dive into Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, and the mighty ones existent? In attempting to understand this passage, it does not help that most translators insert the word men, humanity, or people to drive their own interpretation of what they want us to believe. The Greek text does not include those references. For instance, in the New American Standard Bible, it says, "And the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and those who sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free men and slaves, and small and great." This translation is driving a narrative that the text does not support. The Greek words anthropos or anthropinos, which we translated as man and men, are not included in the Greek text. In that same attempt to cultivate our understanding, the translators also do not include the use of the present middle participle to describe those who are now sitting on these horses, which is beyond problematic if we are to accurately understand what the Spirit is communicating. These translators are driving readers to understand a purely naturalistic view, discounting the spiritual. The catch-all, humanity. This passage provides a layered picture of both the spiritual and the physical, addressing both the angelic demonic entities as well as those in the realm of humanity. As for humanity, it is caught in the description at the very end as sort of a catch-all phrase. "And the flesh of all, both free and slaves, and small and great." This is the same phrasing which the Spirit used when discussing those who received the mark of the beast, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Therefore, it is likely that this part of the passage is a reference to the flesh of humanity. Feast on the demonic. With that said, it appears that the primary focus of this passage is the spiritual beings, the angelic, demonic. The use of the present middle participle in reference to the flesh of horses and of those who choose to now be sitting on them brings us into the realm of the angelic. For from the time of the revelation through into our own time, there are beings who have chosen to now be sitting on these horses. However, regarding the flesh of kings, commanders, and the mighty, we cannot say definitively that these are spiritual beings, but structurally, it seems that the break in this passage between the spiritual and physical occurs after the reference to those who choose to now be sitting on the horses. Because humanity, the flesh of all, both free and slaves and small and great, seems to be captured in this catch-all phrase at the end. But again, we cannot say definitively. The birds and midheaven. All the birds which choose to now be flying in midheaven. With the Spirit bringing this into the present tense, it ties this reference to birds to the spiritual and demonic. For every moment of now, they are flying. At times, in the Codex, the Spirit uses birds as a picture to describe certain evil and demonic beings. In the parable of the sower and the seed, It is specifically stated that the bird imagery represents the evil one who snatches the word of God, the seed, from the hearts of humanity. And in Revelation 18:2, we are told that Babylon, a euphemism for the harlot who represents religion, has become a prison hold for impure or unclean birds, along with unclean spirits and beasts. In that context, these unclean birds function as the prison guards of those who are captive in the harlot system of religious apostasy. It is also likely that in the parable of the mustard tree, the reference to the birds in the air that nest in its branches is also a description of the demonic entities that are likened to birds. These descriptions pull from various Old Testament passages where the birds of the sky, the birds of the heavens, speak of demonic entities amidst the kingdom of Assyria, Babylon, as well as the kingdom of the Messiah. Then in the book of Zechariah, we are given a vision of two angelic beings, women with wings, like a stork, who carry to the land of Shinar, which later became known as Babylon, a lead-covered basket or container, and inside, under the lid, is a woman who is identified as wickedness. These two angelic beings were being sent to Babylon to build a temple for this woman, wickedness, where she was to be set on a pedestal there in Babylon. This is likely an image of when the harlot first received her place of honor and rule there in Babylon. We are also told that these beings with wings like a stork lifted up the basket called an ephah between the earth and the heavens, which is likely another way of referring to what our passage calls midheaven. As for the Greek word translated midheaven or midst of heaven, it has been used two other times in Revelation, but is not used anywhere else in the Codex. Revelation 8:13. Then I looked, and I heard an eagle now flying in midheaven, now saying with a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe to those who are now dwelling on the earth because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the three angels who are now being about to now sound." And Revelation 14:6. And I saw another angel choosing to be flying in midheaven, now having an eternal gospel to preach to those who are now choosing to be residing, or literally sitting on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, now saying with a loud voice, "You are commanded to be caused to fear God, and commanded to give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come, and commanded to worship him who has been making the heavens and the earth and the sea and the springs of water." Each proclamation is a given to those who are now dwelling on the earth, and therefore the intended audience is likely both the physical and spiritual occupants of the earth. The eagle and the angel make their announcements from midheaven, from a location that seems to be between the earth and the heavens, between the seen dimension and the unseen dimension. The convergence. Overall, this is a very disturbing scene. Demonic spirits are being commanded and compelled to come and feast on the flesh of other demons, even spiritual kings like the kings of the earth, and commanders like the 10 horns of the beast, as well as upon the flesh of humanity. And this is grotesquely called the Great Supper of God. With the convergence of the spiritual with the physical, it's very hard to tell what this will look like, as we have no idea what the flesh of spiritual beings is like, or if it's even tasty. Will it taste like chicken? Joking aside, this is an unfathomable scene. It is reminiscent of scenes from movies about the Middle Ages where, in the aftermath of battle, the birds are just ripping meat out of the dead bodies strewn across the fields, feasting as if they were at the greatest of all banquets. Whatever this will look like, the message is one of unparalleled slaughter in both the spiritual and physical realms. And once again, just as he did when he judged the harlot, God uses evil in his judgment against evil. Shocking preview. In the book of Ezekiel, we're given a shocking preview of this event with the convergence of the spiritual with the natural. The Spirit utilizes the same picture of a great sacrifice being a meal for every kind of bird, which likely refers to both the spiritual demonic bird and the physical birds which will feast on the slain. It also references every beast of the field, which likely refers to both the spiritual demonic beasts and the physical beasts of the field. We'll dive into the detail in this passage when we discuss the war, but for now, let's just quickly read about the great sacrifice and feast for the demonic, those birds that are even now flying in midheaven. Ezekiel 39, verse 1 through 6. And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus says Yahweh Adonai, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and I will turn you around and leave a sixth part of you, will cause you to come up from the remotest parts of the north and bring you against the mountains of Israel. I will strike your bow from your left hand and dash down your arrows from your right hand. You will fall on the mountains of Israel, you and all your troops and the peoples who are with you. I will give you as food to every kind of predatory bird and beast of the field. You'll fall on the open field, for it is I who have spoken, declares Adonai, Yahweh, the Lord God. And I will send fire upon Magog and those who inhabit the coastlands in safety, and they will know that I am Yahweh. My holy name I will make known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let my holy name be profaned anymore. And the nations will know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One in Israel. Behold, it is coming, and it shall be done, declares Adonai, Yahweh. This is the day of which I have spoken. And then in Ezekiel 39, 17 through 20, As for you, son of man, thus says Adonai, Yahweh, speak to every kind of bird and to every beast of the field. Assemble and come, gather from every side to my sacrifice. And I'm going to sacrifice for you a great sacrifice on the mountains of Israel, that you may eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of mighty men and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, as though they were rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, all of them fatlings of Bashan. So you will eat fat until you are glutted, and drink blood until you are drunk from my sacrifice which I have sacrificed for you. You will be glutted at my table with horses and charioteers, with mighty men, and all the men of war, declares Adonai, Yahweh. Without going into a lot of detail, and we did touch on this in the past, the reference to Bashan ties the narrative to the demonic, as that was the mountain region with the gates of hell, or Hades, a portal through which it was believed that the major demonic entities entered. Great sacrifices were made to the gods at this mountain. Bashan, also known as Mount Hermon, was believed to be the habitation of the demonic entity who manifested to humanity as Baal. But it does not stop there. In 1st Enoch, the fallen angels were reputed to have arrived on earth on Mount Hermon, and the entire region was considered cursed with evil. The Spirit is communicating that this great feast of God, the sacrifice of the demonic and humanity, is personal payback for all the sacrifices which the demons required from their followers on Mount Bashan. In short, God wins and they lose. He is the only one worthy of sacrifice. And even though the angel calls out to the birds, Yahweh Adonai, or as it says in Ezekiel, the Son of Man, which is how Jesus refers to himself, is the one who sends them to feast, as the command, come, assemble, is in the passive voice. Yahweh Adonai, Jesus the Lord, is the one who utters the command through the agency of the angelic. Grace in the slaughter. As always, there is an aspect of God's grace that is communicated in all things, even in this slaughter. Consider the details of this passage. Come, you are commanded to be caused to assemble for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of commanders, and the flesh of mighty, and the flesh of horses, and of those who choose to now be sitting on them, and the flesh of all, both free and slaves, and small and great. 5 times the word flesh is used, which, according to the code, 5 is the number representing grace. Yahweh Adonai will be wiping out all manner of flesh, both spiritual and physical, such that the world will be cleansed of this evil prior to the Lord's 1,000-year millennial reign on the earth. For all the survivors, the righteous and the elect who never bowed to the beast nor took upon their bodies his name or the number of his name, this slaughter is an act of grace, a gift from God, so to speak. Going forward, at least for the 1,000 years where Christ rules on the earth, they will not have to deal with this evil any longer. As an act of grace, Jesus will call upon the birds to eat the flesh of spiritual beings and physical beings, of kings, commanders, the mighty, horses, and those who choose to now be sitting on them, of all, both free and slaves, and small and great. What a powerful picture. No man nor angel can ever stand toe-to-toe with Yahweh Sabaoth, Yahweh Adonai, with Jesus, our King of Kings and Lord of Lords, for he alone is the Lord, our God, the Almighty. They assemble for war. Revelation 19:19. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies, which had been caused to be assembling to make war against him who chooses to now be sitting on the horse and against his army. As it starts, it will be helpful to refresh our memories of what has been happening on the earth while John was having his visions about the harlot, Babylon the Great, and her destruction, the marriage supper of the Lamb, and all the preparation for the Lord's return. 6 bowls of wrath have been poured out upon the earth, and before the 7th is poured out, 3 evil, frog-like, miracle-working spirits of demons come out of the mouths of the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet, respectively. These evil spirits go out to all the rulers of the world, to the kings of the earth, to gather them for battle against the Lord and his armies. The demonic armies and their human avatars, those through whom they work, gather to a place with the Hebrew name Ar-Megidon, or literally Mount Megiddo, or in the English, the Mount of Gathering. As we studied this name, Ar-Megidon, it's code for the mountain of Jerusalem, where God will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle. Thus, the multitude of all the nations will wage war against those on Mount Zion. The nations will be led by the spiritual overlords, the kings of the earth, the spiritual rulers and princes which regulate the territories of the earth and lord over human kings and rulers. But where is the dragon? Did you pick up on the fact that the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies have been assembling for this war? But there is no mention of the dragon. It's almost as if he intentionally stirs up this fury in his minions and then slowly steps away from the actual war. We'll find that as time comes much later, after the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ. But for now, the dragon is hiding and does not step up to participate in this battle. The dragon is sticking to his original plan, to empower the beast with his, the dragon's, power, throne, and great authority. And he does not want to be there when Jesus shows up. So he slinks back into his cave, metaphorically speaking, and hides away from the terror of the Lamb of God. But he will be found. They are assembled. The word assembled is rendered in the perfect passive participle. And this connects to the fact that these spirits of demons have been assembling this army since the time of John. In fact, the frog-like spirits of demons even now are convincing the kings of the earth to be assembling for war. This has been a long time of preparation, a battle of which has taken centuries to curate against the rider and his armies. In Revelation 16, verses 14 through 16, we address that the armies of the earth will be coming against Jerusalem. That is what human leaders understand, but their counterparts, the kings of the earth, have a different agenda and a different target in mind. They seem to know that it is time, that Jesus is about to return to the very place from which he departed, Jerusalem, and they intend to stop him and his army. They have a purpose, to make war against him who chooses to now be sitting on the horse. The idea is that Jesus is ready. He has his robe, white, dipped in blood, his many diadems, his sword, his horse, the name which only he knows, and the title King of Kings and Lord of Lords written on his robe and thigh. And he is chosen to now be sitting on his horse, ready for the time that the Father releases him to return to earth. And it seems that they, the beast and the kings of the earth, know it. For the literalist, these images can be hard for someone whose mind is wired to think black and white and struggles with metaphors, but delights when things are to be understood literally. For instance, we are told in Colossians chapter 3, verse 1, that Jesus even now sits at the right hand of God. It's where he chooses to now be sitting. But if that is the case, then how can he also choose to now be sitting on his horse, clothed in battle gear? The simple answer is that imagery is a metaphor that communicates a powerful message. In this instance, we are to understand that Jesus is ready to go to war as soon as the Father says go. So you're saying we have a chance. Clearly, the beast and the kings of the earth, the spiritual princes, know that Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies, is their master, and they do not stand a chance against him. They know that he is the creator of all, the Almighty. So what are they thinking? Do they really think they have a chance? Clearly, Satan does not, and that's why he's off hiding somewhere, waiting for the smoke to clear. As the head of the demonic realms, Lucifer should rightfully be at the head of this assault, but he leaves it to his minions. He's no dummy. He deceives them with a swipe of his tail, and then as he hightails it, so that they take the chance and not him. I guess it should not surprise us that it took these frog-like spirits of demons thousands of years to convince the kings of the earth to go for war. They had to come up with an extremely big lie to croak in the ears of the kings of the earth to convince them that they might have a chance. So what could that lie be? Jesus comes in the flesh. In the Codex, we are told that in the same manner as Jesus left this earth, he will return. Not only will he return in the clouds, but he will return in the flesh, just as when he left earth. He will be in his deified body, one that can walk through walls, but in a form that can be touched, hugged, and in which he could eat and drink just like he displayed after the resurrection, but before the ascension. His body even now has physicality, which at that time was tangible enough to convince even Thomas, doubting Thomas, that Jesus was alive. Perhaps this is the reason we are told that many deceivers has gone out into the world. Those who do not acknowledge Jesus as coming in the flesh, where coming is rendered in the present middle participle. In other words, Jesus has chosen to now be coming in the flesh. The Spirit announced it, and these angelic, albeit demonic spirits, accepted as truth. Thus, the way he returns is likely a very key aspect of the lie which these frog-like spirits of demons spoke to the kings of the earth. They made a plan. Psalm chapter 2, verse 2 through 3. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Clearly, the kings of the earth have formed a plan. The frog-like spirits of demons have been successful in convincing the spiritual rulers that there is a chance. Hence, they have convinced themselves that they can be victorious regardless of the absurdity of their conclusion. They believe that with the beast at their head, they can once and for all take possession of the earth and evict Jesus from his rightful place of rule. In their minds, this is the last battle for the sovereignty and supremacy of the earth, and for their freedom from the domineering rule of Yahweh Sabaoth. And the lie which they have swallowed might hinge upon the fact that Jesus will return in the flesh. It is possible that they are convinced that Jesus has the same vulnerability as he did when he first came to the world in the flesh of humanity. And they hope, once again, to exploit what they think is the weakness of his humanity. This reasoning, however, is foolish. Although Jesus is still in a body of flesh, not all is as it may seem. Jesus will return visibly and bodily, and all will see him in his glorified body. He is the immortal King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and he is the Lord our God the Almighty. He is the one who is wearing many diadems or royal crowns that display his mastery and rulership over all things all the time. Therefore, physical form notwithstanding, he is invincible. The heavenly scoff. Psalms chapter 2, verse 4 through 6. He who sits in the heavens laughs. Yahweh holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. The Father literally laughs at the demonic spirits. He holds them in derision, or said another way, he scoffs at their petty arrogance and their feeble plan. This must be one of the most awful expressions in the Bible, the laugh of God. Who would ever be able to forget the dread of this sound and the tone of voice in his scoff? The sound of it would haunt one for all eternity. This laugh is the horrid expression that his patience has come to an end. He will now bring judgments and the vengeance which he has long promised upon all who defy the Son. This is as harrowing and vexing as a picture as there could be. For the first time ever, the whole world, both the spiritual and physical world, moves forward in complete unity. With all its collective wisdom, power, and might, they become fixated on one unifying purpose: victory over the Lamb and conquest over the people of God. They want to kill the Son and his holy army. They are guided and inspired by the entirety of the forces of evil. Never has such an army been amassed. Can you imagine? This gathering is formed from the multitudes from the nations and the multitudes of demonic beings which have been cast down to the earth. These armies are defiant, confident, and they believe their leaders are invincible. They believe in the boastings of the beast, the dragon, wherever he is, and the false prophet, as well as the grotesque lies of those frog-like spirits and demons. They put faith in these posers, these proclaimers of lies and deceptions. Yet Yahweh merely scoffs at them. Their plan is nothing short of inane and insane. The Father, who is greater than all, has already spoken, and his word will not be withdrawn. The earth is Yahweh's, and Jesus is the Lord of the earth. Besides, Jesus is the commander, Yahweh Sabaoth, of all the kings of the earth, whether they realize it or not. Ironically, they are only doing what he has allowed and what he has specifically commanded. He is their true master, and not the beast nor the dragon. Jesus alone holds the keys of death and the grave, Hades. He is the one who opens doors and no one can shut them, and he shuts doors and no one can open them. Jesus sits on the mountain of God above the assembly. He is the head and the chairman over the entire assembly of heavenly beings. And nothing happens in this world absent his allowance and direct command. From what is revealed to us in the book of Job, Satan knows this to be true. Yet for some mind-blowing reason, he persists in his folly. Perhaps he is just crossing his fingers, hoping that his entourage can do something, anything. But it is my guess that he is not entirely convinced of the lies he has told the others, which is why he is hiding and does not participate in this war. Let's stop here, and in our next podcast, we will pick up with the war. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.